Biggs, you're on. Mm-hmm.
From Calexico to Nunavut, from the Aleutian Islands to Newfoundland, through Philadelphia and Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, this is the Dynasty Pulse. Producer, hit it. Hey, Mike, remind me that we need to get a producer. Somebody's got to hit the buttons so we don't have to, because our cues are bad. Anyway, welcome to the Dynasty Pulse. I am one of the hosts at our draft This Guy, Not That Guy, round by round, and that is Hutch. What's up, Hutch?
What's going on, guys?
How you doing?
Doing good. Excited for the show tonight, man. It's going to be – I got a fun list of players here to talk about. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good.
What's the weather like over there in Bethlehem?
Right now, it's been crushing rain. Honestly, actually, it's been a lot of rain. A lot of rain right
Same
now.
Here.
Honestly,
we had thunderstorms all day, which is awesome.
Oh yeah,
we had some
so fun to sit on the window and watch it.
At least you're not getting snow right now, because that's a reality in a lot of areas right now. I've seen some downpours and some snowfalls and stuff like that. And luckily, where I am up here in Canada, I have not seen that. We were really, really nice weather today, first sunshine, so we're pumped for some spring.
Fun.
It's not spring for another month or two up there anyways. Whatever, Mike. Anyway, today we are going to go over the first 10 rounds of your startup drafts and also introduce a new segment. We don't have a title for it. We don't have graphics for it yet or anything like that. But essentially, here's the deal. Mike and I work for the Undroppables. And the Undroppables, we started a Superflex Dynasty startup draft. We're in round 6. We just took our round 5 guy. So for all you Dynasty players, we're going to update every week where we are at in our Dynasty leagues and stuff like that. Startups that we do, trades that we make, things like that. Because we put our money where our mouth is, and we're not going to give you any advice or talk about anything that we are not doing ourselves. So if we're out here and we're saying make a trade for this guy or fade this guy, draft this guy, we're the ones who are also doing that. That's what we pledge to you. That's our covenant to you, the viewer, is we're not telling you one thing and doing something else. We'll talk about that at the very last bit of the show, but this league is so fun already, and we're only in round 5. We got a little bit to talk about. But this is Dynasty Pulse episode 10. Hutchinson Brown is our guest today, and this is Draft This, Don't Draft That. We're going to go over first 10 rounds of a 12-team Dynasty startup. We're looking at Fantasy Pros Superflex Dynasty Startup Rankings ADP, and we will each give you a player to draft and a player to avoid for the round that we're in.
So,
with that said, let's kick this off with Hutch. Hutch, when you're looking at picks 1 through 12, and you can imagine any draft position that you're in, whether it's the top of the round or the middle or the end of the round, who are you looking at to fade and just let go by you? Let me take, perhaps, and who are you looking to reach up for?
So here's the thing. I think the two players I'm looking at blend in with each other because I am going to start with my fade. And this is a play. I might get some heat for this one, but I'm going to be honest. When I draft in Dynasty, I try to look for the end of a tier, right? Because you want to draft in tiers and look for the end of that tier, because then you're still getting that top tier. You're just getting it at a discount. So when I'm in my drafts, Justin Jefferson there at 4th overall, I'm going to pass on Jefferson at 4th overall. If I'm sitting at 4th overall, 5th overall, Jefferson's on the board, I would so much rather trade down to 9 or 10, get some extra value, because you can get significant value for that kind of trade down in a Dynasty League, and draft CeeDee Lamb at 9 or 10, or Amon-Ra St. Brown, whoever's available. I would so much rather do that than just draft Justin Jefferson, because you look at the tier of wide receivers in Dynasty, you look at that top tier, it's Jefferson, Chase, you got Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, in whatever order you want them. And Puka Nacua, he's fighting for that tier as well. He could be put up there, but otherwise it's those 4 or 5 guys in that first tier. And when you're looking at it, Justin Jefferson honestly has the worst quarterback situation of all of them. And he might be the most talented receiver of all of them. Absolutely would agree with that. He's the most talented of all of them, but he's the worst quarterback situation. And as a result, one of the most concerning outlooks for fantasy football, especially for this season alone, because he's either got Sam Darnold or a rookie. We have no idea who it would be. And while on the other side, you got CeeDee Lamb, who I'm picking here as my draft, as somebody who's locked in with Dak Prescott for at least this year. And the Cowboys, look, I know there's a situation where they might not extend him. They're going to extend him. They're just stuck. They have no choice. They're not going to be high enough in the draft. There are no free agents to look out for. They're going to have to get Dak Prescott. They have to give him the contract he wants. They love him in Dallas. They're going to give him the contract, and they're going to have him big time money. And he's going to be with CeeDee Lamb for the next 4 or 5 years, and it's just going to be a match made in heaven. He is a dominant asset, a dominant wide receiver one. I don't have to get into the stats with you. CeeDee Lamb is just a dominant player. So if you're able to draft, instead of draft Justin Jefferson, who's great at 4 or 5, trade down to 9 or 10 and draft CeeDee Lamb and get extra value and still have an elite wide receiver. So that's how I'm approaching the first round if that's my current situation.
I love it. And that's, if you follow the Undroppables, Chalk's Art of Dynasty, that's what he's telling you to do, is get out of that first pick, drop down, grab yourself a big-time wide receiver. And because, Hutch, I know that you have been glued in, locked into every episode that we've done of the Dynasty Pulse, you know that CeeDee Lamb is my wide receiver one.
I actually did see that. I actually did see that around, yeah.
I will take him ahead of Justin Jefferson. I will take him ahead of Jamar Chase.
Totally fair. Honestly, I totally fair. I totally fair.
I love that strategy.
Yeah.
So I have.
Let me get in on it. Can I get a word on Biggs?
I'm done.
You're done. I'm just joking. Yeah, I love that strategy because CeeDee Lamb was actually drafted ahead of Justin Jefferson. He was the better prospect coming out, and now he's got a better situation. He coming off a monster season, and he's 5 spots later. I love that take. I think you nailed that one. You hit the nail on the head with that one, Hutch. Way to go, bud.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's why we're doing this, because we're bringing value to you, the viewer. All right. So I have a similar situation. We're talking about Superflex Dynasty and what goes in the first top 5, 6 picks in the Superflex Dynasty, other than Justin Jefferson at the 4, of course, and that's quarterbacks. So my draft this is any non-quarterback. I love quarterbacks. I don't love starting my draft off in Superflex with quarterbacks. We'll get into that a little bit later because Jalen Hurts was there at our pick, and I don't hate that one. The don't draft guy that I'm talking about is Justin Herbert. Now, he's technically at 13 ADP, but I see him go in the first, and his variance is anywhere from pick 6 to pick 31. I am a zero shares, zero cares guy when it comes to Justin Herbert. He's entering an offense with Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh. Doesn't look great for his prospects as a 600 attempt quarterback anymore. Am I taking Justin Herbert at the 31? Obviously. I'm not taking him at the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12. I'm drafting anybody else, whether it's Bijan, Brees, Jefferson, Chase, CD. I'm taking anybody except Justin Herbert. Don't reach.
Yeah. And the thing about that is, too, they just unloaded all their wide receiver weapons. It doesn't sound like they're in the market of getting a wide receiver with that 5 pick. They're likely to probably move off that pick in the draft as well. So I don't think they're going to be putting a whole lot of weapons around Justin Herbert to get him to succeed anyhow. Yeah, not the passing volume of the past and a new offense. Like it's an elite talent. Don't get us wrong on that one, folks. It's just the price you're going to pay for him. Like Big said, if you get him at 31, do it. But if you're looking at wide quarterback 5, 6, or 7, that's pretty rich for my blood. What are your thoughts on that one, Hutch?
Oh, yeah, I would absolutely agree. If he's going in the first round, I would pass on it as well. Even if the Chargers do decide to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabors at that 5 spot, which I think is very, very plausible and very, very realistic for them, you still got Jim Harbaugh. You still got Greg Roman, as we talked about, and they're likely to draft another running back as well and make this a run-first offense. They've got a great offensive line to do. The thing is, I see, personally, when I look at ADP, when I've seen the vibe on Twitter on Justin Herbert, people are very low on him. Like, I've seen him fly past the mid-second round in a lot of dynasty drafts pretty often. He's not going in the first anymore. So I would still keep an eye on him just in case, like, hey, if this guy falls past the second round, we know he's an elite talent. We know he's got the arm. We know he's got the physical capabilities. I would just keep an eye and see where he's actually going, because obviously if he's going in the first, no, but if he starts to slide a little bit into the late second, that's the point where it's okay, this guy's worth it, because no matter what, even after this year, they're going to have to get receivers. Like they can't continue with this room. It's just not possible unless Quentin Johnson provides a miracle for us. They just can't continue. You can't win as an NFL team with this receiver room. So even if they don't do it this season, they're going to make changes. They have to. So Herbert in Dynasty is someone that if the price is low enough, I'd actually be looking to scoop up him.
First round in our Undroppables Superflex Dynasty draft, Herbert just went 11.
Herbert went 11. Okay. Yeah, that's too high. yeah. That's too high.
Yeah.
That's too high. Nope.
Hey, Mike, you're taking Joe Burrow, right?
No, I'm not taking Joe Burrow, but I am going to take a quarterback at an ADP that I feel like is a value right now, and it's a high value. It's a pretty strong pick here. I like Lamar Jackson. He is my quarterback 3 right now. He is being drafted at ADP 5. I know that is pretty much right in line where he should be. I have him at QB 3. I said I have Josh Allen slipped a bit. I think I got CJ Stroud moving up now after that huge move that the Texans made.
And I like
Lamar. What's that? I think he's my 1 now.
Wow.
I'm bringing CJ Stroud as my 1 now. I like what's happening, and if you look at his age, you can compare him to Mahomes. They're very similar in the way they operate. They have some rushing upside. They're pocket passing, but now he's got the talent around him, and they just put everything around him. But back to Lamar, as far as like where I see him, they have Zay Flowers now on year 2. I think he's poised for a big season. Mark Andrews is coming back. They just added Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson doesn't rush for a whole lot of touchdowns in the first place. So I don't think him going in and being a red zone threat is an issue there. Derrick Henry is going to get a lot of that volume in the red zone, but I just think the upsides there, the rushing upsides there. He's not that far removed from the QB1 in 2019. And I think he's evolved quite a bit more as a passer. So I love Lamar where he's at there. I would pick him over some of these guys now. And then, that's where I'm sitting there. But I am fading Joe Burrow too. And there's a couple of reasons why. He's been QB10, QB4, and then QB21. He did get injured. He was injury plagued. He has a poor O-line. There's no tight end there, and Higgins could be on the move. So there's a lot of variables there in the Bengals offense that worries me. And the price to pay QB8 or ADP8 is quite a hefty price to pay for me with so many variables in that lineup.
I like that. And Fishbowl last year, Fishbowl 13, SFB 13. I had my heart set on Joe Burrow with my pick and changed it at the last minute to Lamar, and that really worked out for me. So I think I'd throw Lamar that bone this year too.
Yeah, I totally agree with the Burrow take as well. And Lamar, I think I'm at ADP with Lamar, so I'm cool with that. But Burrow, the one I really agree with it, because even looking at way he plays football, right? The future of the quarterback position is running. You got to give us something with your legs. And Burrow, with his 2 injuries that he's had with his legs, and the way that he just doesn't run, he doesn't give you the mobility. So we have to rely on high touchdown percentages and a lot of yards. And like you mentioned, Boyd's gone. Higgins could be on the move, and even after this year could be on the move if he stays this year. And then you have a running back room that's not as stable as it was over the last couple of years with Mixon. You have a not great offensive line. You still don't have a great tight end, and they could change in the draft. Brock Bowers if he falls. That's absolutely a realistic outcome for them. But nonetheless, Burrow is still a player that you have to rely on crazy touchdown percentages, and with the offense he's looking at right now, that's just not where you're at. And he's also nearly 30 already. Like, this dude is not super young. He's been in the league for a little bit now. And I agree with you. I think 8 overall is a little steep. There might be a couple players I'd want over him. So I love that pick.
There's a lot of volatility with him and a lot less safer floor with Lamar, etc. So moving into the second round, Hutch, who you got?
So my draft here, my guy that I really want to pick, I've been in on this player before the NFL draft. Before the NFL draft, I tweeted out like a while ago. Before the NFL draft, I was saying that this guy could be RB1 overall after this season, ahead of Bijan Robinson. I'm not even kidding. And I was talking about Jahmyr Gibbs. And then that was before he went in the first round, 12th overall Lions. And then he went there. And I was like, Jahmyr Gibbs will be the RB1 after this season in Dynasty. And he's not RB1 consensus, and he's my RB2, but he's absolutely in contention for the RB1 spot. And I love him in the middle of the second round in a Dynasty League in a super flex format. I think it's just too easy because when you look at the way he's used, he's not used as your typical workhorse back. He doesn't get all those dirty, short yardage, goal line kind of care. He does get goal line work, but he doesn't get those short yardage, really tough, gritty yards. He gets into situations where he's in open space, he's in open field, and that's going to cause him to have a lot less miles on his legs over his career, potentially a lot less injuries, a lot less wear and tear on his body, and as a result, a longer career. With running backs, we always like to complain they don't have long enough careers. These top-tier guys just don't. You talk about Zeke Elliott, Dalvin Cooks, but you talk about these guys that have been workhorses, they just don't have long careers. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is able to beat that because when we look at, specifically, I want to shout out Jamal Charles because he had a couple seasons where he got 250-plus carries, but a lot of his career, he was low in terms of carry count, and he got a ton of receiving work. And this dude was like 7 years in the NFL, straight up a dominant fantasy back. He got a couple injuries along the way, but overall on the season, when you look back, he was like 6-7 years as a dominant asset. I feel like we see that. I see that for Jahmyr Gibbs in this elite Lions offense with a non-mobile quarterback in Jared Goff, who should be starting with them for the next couple of seasons. I am really, really hyped for what Jahmyr Gibbs has to offer us fantasy managers for the next.
We don't steam up Chiefs on this show. We do steam up Jared Goff. Hashtag Novato boys. Let's go, Cal. No, I love Jahmyr in that offense. It's a high production offense. He's got a couple of alpha pass catchers, and Jared Goff with just slightly more mobility than Aiden O'Connell. Although Jared Goff is deceptively fast. He's a lot faster than people give him credit for, but he is a traditional stick your feet in the ground pocket passer. And Jahmyr Gibbs getting the ball out in space, he's going to make a lot of guys miss. Nobody's going to hit him like head on. He's in for a pretty long career. And a lot of the kind of the downside to him last year was his size and the fact that he's not really like a workhorse prototype, blah, blah, blah. But if they have a very, very creative offensive scheme that gets him the ball in situations where he's not going to take a lot of punishment. And I love that pick.
Yeah. And a lot of people talk about sorry, go for it.
No, I was just going to add too, like he hasn't even scratched the surface yet really on his receiving game. Like he can, there's room for another 20 targets for him in that offense, and he's just getting 100%. Steam. If you look at the last half of last year, he's ultra effective in the red zone too, and they were using him there, which is incredible. So David Montgomery's role is going to be, yes, the same, but he's going to be faded out, and Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get the lion's share eventually there you go. I like my pun of the more meaningful work, and David Montgomery will take the beating, and that's how it'll roll. And Jahmyr Gibbs is going to fly out the door, and I love that pick.
So who are you fading?
So my fade here, this is a very talented player, and unfortunately he's on my favorite team, but I'm talking about AJ Brown. I think he's a fade in Dynasty right now at his current cost. He's going as like a top 5, top 6 Dynasty wide receiver, and I just don't see any ceiling for him. I think he's a player who's going to, no matter what he does this year, decrease a lot in value. Right now, he's a 26-year-old wide receiver, going to turn 27 in June. So that means next offseason, we're going to be looking at a 28-year-old wide receiver in June, right? A 28-year-old wide receiver is not going to be in the top 6 Dynasty rankings. He's just not. A 28-year-old wide receiver, it's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter what kind of season he has. It's not going to happen, especially with guys like Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabors, Romeo Odunze, all sitting right around and behind him. There's just no chance that he's able to beat out those guys next season. So I feel like you're investing in AJ Brown saying, okay, the thing is, we're not guaranteeing anything this year. There is not a guarantee this year because the Jalen Hurts Eagles offense that we saw in the last 6 games of the season, AJ Brown was a disaster for fantasy in those games. He really killed you. If that's more of the offense we see, if Jalen Hurts is trending in that direction, there's no guarantee that AJ Brown finishes as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy this year. And if that were to happen, and if he would have finished outside the top 10 and then he is a 20-year-old wide receiver after that season, dude, like he might be outside like the top 12 wide receivers in Dynasty like that. And you're drafting him inside the top 6 right now. And I feel like even if he has a top 5 season, he's still gonna be like wide receiver 8 after this year, or wide receiver 10. I just don't see him staying where he's at. There's only downside here for AJ Brown. You're drafting him so high, so I'd rather take the shot on a young receiver like Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson. Honestly, I think the debate is very fair between Malik Nabors or Marvin Harrison Jr. or Romain Dunze versus AJ Brown, depending on their draft spots. I think it's a very fair debate.
Drake London now at this stage too.
London, you might be. London's tougher. I'm still a little worried about Kirk Cousins off that Achilles. That's the only thing for me that I don't know where he's going to be at there. But that is also a debate that I've seen people have, and I think, you know what, it's not that bad because London's got some years on him.
Coming from an Eagles fan base, Shane Steichen leaving there. And if you look at Jalen Hurts' passing numbers in 2022 compared to 2023, they went down quite a bit. And the only thing that really saved him, and he still finished very relative to what he was, and his points per game went down quite a bit. And he was still rushing. Like he rushed for 16 touchdowns last year, Jalen Hurts. That is a scary part for me when you're talking about those receivers without Shane Steichen in that offense and leading the way there. I think that really dampers Jalen Hurts' upside as a passer. And I think he hit the nail on the head there with AJ Brown. Absolutely.
I think we're in a post-hype area with the Eagles, because spoiler alert, I got another Eagle to talk about a little bit later. But with that, I totally forgot how to do
put it back on.
There we go.
There you go.
You got it.
Producer, god damn it. All right, so in the where'd it go? Come on. All right, second round, we're talking picks 13 to 24. You just talked about Garrett Wilson, and Garrett Wilson is my guy. He's sitting around ADP 16 right now. His variance is anywhere between pick 11 and pick 30. So he can sneak into the top of the first or back end of the first. I really like Garrett Wilson. You're going to hear this a lot from me. He's a third-year wide receiver, and I love me some third-year breakouts. On top of that, we didn't get to see the real Garrett Wilson last year, and we didn't really get to see the real Garrett Wilson the year before. He hasn't had a quarterback on the level of Aaron Rodgers, who is coming back. You mentioned being scared of Kirk Cousins because of his Achilles. There was not a more famous Achilles injury last year than the one to Aaron Rodgers, but I have zero problems thinking that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a real galvanizing force for that New York Jets offense, and especially for Garrett Wilson. And when you got a guy in the backfield like Breece Hall, it just opens things up down the field and vice versa. I think both of those guys are going to have huge years. I really love the value of Aaron Rodgers later as like your third quarterback in a super flex. Hint, hint, Mike. But Garrett Wilson is my guy. Now, the guy that I'm fading, and he's coming in right around ADP 20, and this is going to be controversial, I'm not taking Marvin Harrison Jr. with as high as the 20th pick. I understand he is uber talented, but I do see some metrics that make me think that fading him and banking on some other rookie wide receivers a little bit later that do some things on the field a little bit better than he does. You can't argue his legacy. You can't argue his bloodline. You can't argue his abilities, his talent level. But I've seen some things from some other wide receivers that make me want them in the 4th and 5th round more than I want Marvin Harrison Jr. in the 2nd. So if it comes down to a choice between Garrett Wilson or Marvin Harrison Jr., I know, and especially at this point, without any landing spot or draft capital or anything, I know what I'm getting out of Garrett Wilson, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is still a little bit. I'll trade up for him. I'll throw a 25 first at some point later on and go grab him. But as far as startup drafts at this point, I'm going Garrett Wilson over Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, that's a controversial one, but I don't mind it. I like Garrett Wilson. I think he's got a lot of upside there, like you had mentioned, with Breece Hall in there. Like all those points strike home, and I would probably take if you want to risk it, then go with Marvin Harrison. If you want more of the safer play, then Garrett Wilson is the play. What do you think about that one, Hutch?
Yeah, that's a quite an interesting debate. When you look at Garrett Wilson, obviously you have Aaron Rodgers come off Achilles here, so there's a bit of concern there. He's also 40 years old, so we don't know the future of the quarterback for the New York Jets, so that concerns me a little bit for Garrett Wilson. But then you got Marvin Harrison Jr. obviously could end up in a trash situation or a really good situation. But here's the thing with Harrison. I don't look, Biggs, I would love to hear I'm not trying to call you out. I would love to hear the metrics you're hearing. The things I've looked at, the things I've researched when I've fought on film, Marvin Harrison Jr. is in his own tier to me. I think Malik Nabors is excellent. I think, like, for me, it's all three of these top three guys are in their own tier. Like Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabors, and Roman Dunze. They're all in their own tier 1, 2, 3. That's how I see this receiving class. It's insane. But Harrison's just a difference-making talent. And the places he's most likely to go, you look at the Arizona Cardinals, you look at the Los Angeles Chargers, and those are the two most likely landing spots where he's going to go. And those two have great quarterbacks and really solid offenses with really, really smart head coaches who know how to play football, who know how to use football players. And I would be excited for him in either of those spots. So that's a very close debate. I think right now, without landing spot, I would still lean Garrett Wilson, but I think it is so close. It is.
Yeah. And so what I'm talking about, and we're trying to mitigate risk, and that's what my point was with, we know what we're getting with Garrett Wilson. We don't quite know yet what we're getting with Marvin Harrison Jr. It's everything about Marvin Harrison Jr. right now is noise. Everything with Garrett Wilson is signal. You start looking at how quarterback proof he was when he had some of the worst pass throwers getting the ball to him and still winds up with really good fantasy seasons. Specifically what I'm talking about with Marvin Harrison Jr., his yards after catch per reception and his missed tackles forced per reception. He goes down when he gets the ball to a certain extent. He was bottom tier. I guess that would be 18th and 17th in those two metrics. Yes, his first downs per route run and his yards per route run against man and zone coverage were all elite. But as an overall all-around receiver, he feels less like a do-it-all kind of guy like a Devontae Adams and more a specific type X, where he's going to get the ball on the boundary, he's going to get the ball out in space in the middle of the field, but he's going to go down right away. So that all remains to be seen. But as far as college production, not tape grinding, as as far as some statistical metrics, he falls short a little bit. He wound up in the overall wide receiver model 6th in the class, even though he did have some pretty elite numbers that should have boosted him up a little bit. But he had a lot of guys who people aren't talking about that ranked ahead of him. And
yeah,
so it's not enough for me to pull the trigger. And again, it's a case of I like him and I want him in my roster, but I'm willing to allow other people to take that chance and me get somebody who's safer and less of a question mark for me.
Yeah, I like that. But the thing, like, those are really good metrics to bring up. And honestly, when you said that, I was like, that's crazy. Because when I saw on film, like, I saw a lot of yard after catch ability. I saw a lot of the plays where he was making moves. But hey, the numbers, and they say that. But I will go back on you a little bit about the taking on risk. I think in Dynasty, it's actually really smart to take on some risk sometimes, because to win championships, to get up there in the rankings, to be that top dude, you got to take some risks. Right. You got to get some risks somewhere. Like you have to. You really have to. We're not playing for 5th place. We're playing for the top tier. And I think sometimes you got to be willing to take that shot at that.
Agreed. And I didn't say avoiding risk. I said mitigating. Yeah, Greinberg knows. Yeah. Fair. Greinberg knows I take chances. I'm loud and I take chances. But when we're talking about like roster construction and trying to like zigzag the intricacies of what other teams are doing in a draft situation, mitigating that risk and taking, because Garrett Wilson is not without risk. You know what I mean? He's not like he's not in that top tier. But if I'm somewhere in the middle of the 2nd round and I have both of those guys on my board, I'm taking Garrett Wilson. If he's gone, I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr.
And that's fair. Yeah. Yeah. I think this is a great debate that needs to come to light, because there's quite a bit of talent on both sides of that situation. And I love to be able to break it down, and the way we're doing it. It's very, very, very constructive criticism that we're going through here. It's awesome, guys.
And I had zero problem being wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I'm going to hit up my my picks here. And so I'm going to tell you all to draft Caleb Williams at his ADP at 19. And I'm going to tell you why. I think that Caleb Williams, right now, I have him currently ranked as my QB6 in Dynasty. They're talking about generational talent, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's aside. I love what situation I think he's going to be into. The Bears just traded for Keenan Allen. They have DJ Moore. They just got DeAndre Swift. They still have a really good backfield on top of that. Johnson, I think, is a really good threat. And then they have the opportunity with their second pick to pick up a wide receiver too. Can you imagine if you had Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze all wearing Bears colors? I like that idea. Yeah.
Roschon Johnson on third downs, Cole Kmet as a top 10 fantasy tight end. Love it.
Go ahead, Hutch.
Oh, I was just saying, I love this pick, Caleb Williams. I feel like the more we go to draft, the quicker he's going to go up draft boards. I don't think you're going to get him in the second round after he gets drafted. I don't think there's a chance that happens. I think he's going to be going probably around like the top 6 to 8 quarterbacks in Dynasty once he's drafted. But I love the pick here. If you can get him in the second round, get him all you can, because this is going to be the cheapest he is until draft time. It just is. Yeah. And he's going to be going into the best situation that a number one pick has. I can't think of a number one pick in recent memory that has ever gone into this good of a situation. It's just ridiculous, the weapons he has. And we didn't talk about Cole Kmet, and he also has Gerald Everett, too, a very reasonable tight end who can make damage with the ball in his hands. So I love that call with Caleb. That's a really
and the other thing is, like you said, like what opportunity to pad like they did last year. They traded down, you know what I mean, and they got some weapons. They got DJ Moore out of that deal, and now to really take flight. And I think Caleb Williams is set up to be a smash play this year. The Bears are going to surprise some people, and I think they're score a lot of points, especially in the first half when the weather is good in Chicago. And as the weather turns and stuff like that, they may be more run centric. That's also something that Caleb Williams can do well as well. So like he's not known. Yeah, he's not known to be a screen. He can make plays with his legs as well, and I think that'll be vital for them down the stretch. So my fade in this round, it's another quarterback, and his ADP sitting at 24, so right on the cusp here, and that's Trevor Lawrence. It's a hefty price to pay when I'm seeing other guys in that range. They just lost Calvin Ridley, their number one wide, and that doesn't normally translate to success in the NFL as far as a team dominating. Usually their number one guy plays the outside, and when you rely on a slot guy like Christian Kirk, don't get me wrong, I think he's a great player. I think he's going to do well this year. He's going to gain those targets, but they need to have somebody like a Calvin Ridley to take some of that pressure off. And when your number 2 target is a tight end, that is not leading to fantasy production as a quarterback, especially if you're not a running quarterback. And they got a really nice backfield there with Travis Etienne coming off another really nice season. There's rumors about Tank Dell taking more snaps, so I think they're going to be running a lot more than that they did last year.
Bigsby.
Bigsby. Sorry. Bigsby there. But yeah, I think they're going to be running a little bit more too. And I just think that Trevor Lawrence at that range is just too much to pay. I don't think he's a QB1 at this stage with all these other guys that are coming up the ranks here too. I would just pass on him at that stage.
Yeah, I wrote him down as for the third round. I wrote him down for my fade. I completely agree with you. And honestly, when you look at the quarterbacks behind him, I'd rather have Dak, Jordan Love, and honestly, I might even rather have Brock Purdy. I'm not going to lie, in Dynasty. But when you look at Trevor Lawrence, I think because he's the number 1 overall pick, because he was such a talented prospect, because he's at least putting up solid numbers, he's going to have a pretty long career. Like, he's going to have a really solid career. I think even if Jacksonville moves on, another team will give him a shot. He's going to have more chance. He's going to have a longer career. And Brock Purdy, everyone's, okay, what are they going to do after the rookie contract? Are they going to actually extend him? Or are they going to move on like they did with Jimmy Garoppolo, like they've done with other quarterbacks? Because that's just the concern with the 49ers in their quarterback room. But I honestly think Purdy this past year, people don't really remember. He was the quarterback 6 in fantasy. Like, this dude was an elite fantasy quarterback, not just good, elite. Lawrence wasn't even a QB1 this past year in points per game. Purdy was an elite quarterback. And I would so much rather have, if you can give me 2 or 3 years of Brock Purdy being in a great fantasy quarterback compared to 4, 5, 6 years of Trevor Lawrence being like mid as heck, I will take Purdy every day of the week. So give me Dak Love and Purdy. Give me Dak Love and Purdy over Lawrence.
Dak's my QB4.
In Dynasty?
Yeah.
Oh, that's hot.
And but I don't mind rostering Trevor Lawrence. I just want him as my QB3. I don't want him as one of my top two
Oh yeah,
quarterbacks.
of course.
If he's going before my third quarterback, then he can go somewhere else. We have a quick update. We just missed out on George Pickens.
I know, I saw that. What we're gonna do is, I think, because in our dynasty startup,
dynasty drafts.
Yeah. George Pickens just went. He was one of our guys. We got
news.
Yeah. So let's do 2 more rounds because we're already at 40 minutes here, and we'll save you some time there, Hutch. And this is very good Discord here. Like I love the conversations we're having, and we seem to be pretty aligned
here. If you want to go later, that's totally fine with me. I was
ready for 15 rounds.
I'm chilling, guys. If you want to go a little bit longer, I'm cool. I don't care.
Sure. So we'll see how we go. So next round, Biggs. We're in round 3 here. Hutch, who do you got for round 3?
Go ahead and scroll that, Mike.
Scroll that a little bit. So my round 3 player, I was going to talk about T-Law as a fade. I quickly hinted at it earlier, but my actual target here is going to be Sam Laporta, 10 out of Detroit. I think here's the thing with Sam Laporta, because I think he's a great player. I am actually a tad worried about touchdown regression this year. The dude scored an unreal amount of touchdowns this year and could go back a little bit this year, but nonetheless, when you look at his yards after contact numbers, you look at yards after catch numbers, and you watch him play football, the dude is an elite tight end. It's just very clear he's a great athlete. He has all the opportunity in the world in this offense, and he is Jared Goff, a very solid quarterback for at least the next couple of years, I would guess. And if they extend him to a longer-term contract, forget about it. He's going to be there for a while. And honestly, they all love Jared Goff. I think he's going to be staying in Detroit for a while. So I'm looking at Sam Laporta as the tight end 1 in Dynasty. And tight end is a very, very weird landscape where you just want one of those big guys that give you the advantage. For a while, it's been Travis Kelce, and then a couple others maybe after him. But now with Travis Kelce aging out of the picture, there's a little range here of tight ends that I really like. Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta, a couple others here. But Laporta to me is the one. And if you can get a top-tier dynasty tight end where that's going to last you a while in the 3rd round of your draft, I just think that's worth it. The advantage you're getting over a lot of your league mates is just so worth it. So I think Sam Laporta is a great, great target.
That's awesome, because I have a counterpoint that we'll get to in a minute when I go through mine. But no, we'll get there in a little bit. Again, I love Sam Laporta. I like the Lions, and because I'm a huge Jared Goff fan, and watching the ascendance of Sam Laporta. And Sam Laporta making me look good in so many leagues was very satisfying. And I don't have a problem with drafting him, especially in the 3rd round. We'll get into more of that later. Who is your fade?
It was Trevor Lawrence. I talked about that a little bit.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And Grammer highlighted perfectly about how Trevor Lawrence is a complete fade to me.
We're at the point of the show where we're starting to step on each other's toes, and Hutchinson earlier mentioned Dak Prescott, and I said Dak Prescott is my QB4. In my QB rankings, he's currently going at ADP 26. So his variance is pick 14 to 53. I feel like if you're getting Dak, to me, could be a 1st rounder, but you don't have to, because he will last. And if Dak is there in the 3rd round, you smash the hell out of that. There's no reason for Dak to be a 3rd round pick in a Superflex dynasty startup.
No, not when he finished the way he has. Yeah. Go ahead.
Like when you consider, I mentioned it earlier, but when you consider the contract he's probably going to get with the Dallas Cowboys this offseason to extend for the next 4 or 5 years, you just have a locked-in quarterback 1 for the next 3 to 5 years easily. Like you just have that for the next handful of years with Dak Prescott, and if you get to draft that in the 2nd, 3rd round of your dynasty startups, it's a pretty easy cost. It's easy.
And he's consistently a top 10 dynasty finisher or FF finisher, except for the hiccup when he had hip problems. And then last season, he was right back in the mix. And as long as he's got CeeDee Lamb, and heck, I'll even throw out Jake Ferguson, he should be.
They're going to draft somebody too, or add somebody. They need receiving help. I don't know what Jerry Jones is doing with his all-in thing. It's not working. I don't know what they're doing, but they do need receiving help, and I wouldn't be surprised if they drafted somebody high in this class.
Does anybody ever know what Jerry Jones is doing?
No,
Not really.
It's like I don't get it. It's really funny. As an Eagles fan, it's hilarious. I love it. I think it's
Right.
amazing. It's beautiful to watch the Cowboys fall apart a little bit. It warms my heart. I love CeeDee Lamb. I love Dak. I love them as players, but it as a Eagles fan, it warms my heart a little bit. But it's just so funny. Like, I don't get it. They said they're all in, and they've lost everybody and signed nobody, and it's just like, this is stupid.
Yeah, I love hating the Cowboys. There's not more that's as satisfying as watching their exits. And I think everybody can say that when they say that it's America's team. What they're missing is the ellipses, and then it's America's team to laugh at.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
It's how we all come together. All right, so Dak is my third round smash. My third round fade was Sam Laporta.
Okay.
And again, I like him.
I'm gonna be like, I don't know where you're gonna go with this, but I'm gonna see where you go with this, because I think I'm gonna have the same argument.
Can I be the moderator here? And I'm gonna defend both you guys, because I think he's a big fader of the tight end position in general. So that's probably his thinking behind it. Okay. Like, he sees value later. Yeah. So where you see it as being an elite, aspect to your team, he sees he can find value later on in the draft. And I'm probably speaking out of turn here. Biggs, why don't you go ahead and tell us why Sam Laporta is a fade for you, bud?
No, so at this point, he's ADP 31. He's going anywhere from the 18th to the 55th pick, but average about 31, which sounds fine. But what we're trying to do here in PPR is compete. And when we're competing against guys who are stacking wide receiver position, and we're talking about tight ends, the variance at tight end, especially in your elite tier, like your top, when Travis Kelce is not your tight end one, the number of candidates for that tight end one spot goes up significantly. And you're not going to get a whole lot of variance if you're grabbing the tight end 8, say an Evan Ingram, who we'll talk about later, versus a Sam Laporta. I love Sam Laporta's production, and I love him as the Lions tight end. And I love the new big slot note. Like, I'll talk about this when we have Koopa Fiasco next week. But the trend of tight ends at this point, you see more coming into the league, like Brock Bowers, Jatavion Sanders, guys who are big slot receivers. Let's see a Kyle Pitts resurgence in Atlanta. Let's have Kelce return to the fold and have an uptick this year. The emergence of Dalton Kincaid, Jake Ferguson in Dallas. You got Luke Musgrove in Green Bay. There are so many good tight ends at this point that it's going to dilute it. And when I'm looking at value, I'm going to be able to get a tight end that competes even in the later rounds and not have to waste that draft capital on. And I shouldn't use the word waste, because if you're drafting Sam Laporta in the third round, that's not a waste of a pick. He definitely deserves to go there. It's just, I'm going to concentrate my value on somebody else and go a little bit later with Sam with the tight end position.
Yeah, it's fair, but the problem is when you look at it, like when you look at the tight end landscape, being able to have that advantage is something that is truly a gift. And if you go later, more often than not, you're not going to hit. I mean, you're just not going to hit on that player. And when you talk about the top, I was going to bring up the point that, because I personally love Brock Bowers, I love Dalton Kincaid, I love Trey McBride. They are all going later than Sam Laporta. I was like, why can't you get those guys later? Because I think those are the top 4 tight ends in Dynasty. Personally, I would rank them. And honestly, I think Bowers could be tight end 1. I wrote an article with DLF a bit ago arguing that Bowers could be the tight end 1 in Dynasty.
Sure. McBride too.
I think you could absolutely argue it. But having that top tier tight end in Dynasty is important. That's why I wanted to bring up Sam Laporta and say, if you can get mid-early round elite tight end, just take it, because it's such an advantage for your fantasy football team. Sure.
And Brock Bowers ate my pizza. I mean that literally. I made pizza that he ate. So I just want to throw
For
that
real?
out there, because yeah. He went to high school catty corner to the pizza place that I ran, and he used to make 50 pizzas for the team and stuff. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
So I want to posit this. I want to throw this out there. And basically, Sam Laporta finishes the tight end 1 in Dynasty last season, 2023. Mm-hmm. You had a down year from Travis Kelce and an injury season from Mark Andrews. What happens if both of those guys have 17 games of healthy, productive fantasy football? that lessens the impact of Sam Laporta in the tight end class for 2024. What happens if you have the emergence of a Dalton Kincaid with the exit of Stephon Diggs? What happens if you have Brock Bowers who comes in and has a Kyle Pitts type season or repeats a Sam Laporta type season? What happens if Kyle Pitts comes to fruition at his young age with Kirk Cousins throwing him in the ball the way that Kirk Cousins threw to TJ Hawkinson? George Kittle could very easily have a huge year. So there is no locked in tight end one like there was with Travis Kelce. And I would submit that the only reason that is because Travis Kelce didn't finish as tight end one last year like he normally does. So there is so many tight ends that have the ceiling for a top 8 finish. And I didn't even get to Cole Kmet, who with a Caleb Williams could repeat his tight end 7 season. So there is just, granted, there's a tight end slot and 12 teams. So you definitely need to have somebody who's going to give you an advantage over some of the other tight ends. Evan Ingram, like there are so many who have the capability to put together a high level 17 game season, and Sam Laporta slip a little bit. I think the position is a little bit diluted just because there's so much talent there, whereas there didn't used to be. It only used to be there were 3 or 4 guys, and that was it. That's how I got into tight end streaming, looking at matchups every week. And now I got to the point where I was like, if I'm not willing to pay for Kelce, then I'm just going to wait until the last rounds.
Yeah, I love that strategy. I've been doing that for a while. Yeah,
absolutely. And so that carries over a little bit from redraft into Dynasty, not necessarily in best ball, but in Dynasty at least. There are a lot of really, really young tight ends who knows what could happen. What if Brock Bowers goes to the Chargers? You know what I mean? What could they do with him in a Greg Roman offense, with Herbert throwing him the ball? So there are just so many possibilities out there that I love having Sam Laporta in my rosters, but putting together a startup, I might wait for value later on.
It's fair. Yeah, there's plenty. It is the Dynasty tight end landscape has opened up a little bit where there's a few younger guys that could hit. I think I more brought up Sam Laporta to bring up the point that having the early tight end is a good idea. That's really what I wanted to bring up. That having that early tight end is just a good idea. I feel like the more that I think about it, the more I think, you know what? I feel like I brought this up more to talk about having an advantage of tight end, not necessarily just Sam Laporta. I want to have an advantage of tight end. So drafting Sam Laporta, whoever it is, I think is important.
But to your point, though, Hutch, too, what rookie tight end has ever finished as a tight end 1? And so we have to take that into consideration when you're talking about that pick, too. So really, at this stage, I think it's like, what's your strategy going into the draft if you value tight end as a position like that, or you're streaming it? And I think you both have very, very excellent arguments for both sides of the ball there. So awesome.
I know who I'm taking Sam Laporta over, and that's Malik Nabors.
I wouldn't do that either.
Well, yeah,
I wouldn't do that either. I wouldn't do that either. But I don't think that's gonna be. I don't think that's gonna be happening by the time draft hits.
Yeah,
I think Nabors will be soundly over Sam Laporta.
So currently, Malik Nabors is at ADP 31, and he is ready to dominate the NFL. He's measured just over 6 feet, 199 pounds. He ran a 4.35 40-yard dash, 42-inch vertical, and registered a 10'9" broad jump. He's pretty similar in size than Jamar Chase, but he completely beat him in every category at their pro day the other day. So Nabors is a great separator. His yards after catch is just special. He can turn a 2-yard play into 20. I just love this prospect. A great mix of size and speed. He's a threat all over the field. His yards per route run is elite. He's only behind Marvin Harrison Jr. at that, and he's second in the class at first down per route run. So all those metrics are just telling me go get Malik Nabors. No matter where he is drafted, the guy is going to be just elite all over the field. Honestly, I have him over Marvin Harrison at this stage, just because I think he brings more after the catch prowess, and I just love his profile a little bit more. But they're both 1A, 1B there, and I just moved Nabors over him right now.
I want to update you and dig at you because when you go into the show sheet so early, sometimes there's a data change, and we have a data update.
Oh.
So as of today, when I was doing my thing, Sam Laporta was the ADP 31, not Malik Nabors, because Malik Nabors is the ADP 30. So, haha, Mike.
My bad.
What are your thoughts on LSU stud Malik Nabors, Hutch?
Oh, he's unbelievable. He's fantastic. This wide receiver class is ridiculous, and Nabors is among the top. He really, like, to me, when I watch him play, when I look at the metrics, the numbers, the height, size, everything, like, literally, he is just Ja'Marr Chase all over again. He really, really is. Looking at every single metric you can look at and compare both those two players, it is so close. And it's just ironic that they go to the same school. But I really tried to keep that out of it, my analysis, because I kept hearing that comp, and I was like, are we sure this is not just because it's LSU? Are we sure? And I watched the film on both in college.
Yeah.
I looked at the numbers, watched the tape, man, and they're just so freaking similar.
No helmet scouts.
What?
No, we know ball. No helmet scouts here.
Yeah, no. I really try to keep that out of it. But like, they are just so similar, and he's going to go top of the draft just like Chase did. I wouldn't be surprised if Nabors end up going top 5, and that solidifies him even more. Like these. Like, the thing is, like, when you look at the wide receiver position, the guys who are picked this high from big schools like this, they just don't miss. You look at, like, recent classes, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Ja'Marr Chase. These guys are all hits. You look at the top 10 picks of wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, Drake London. These guys did not miss. They're great players. They just haven't fully broke out yet. But these guys in the top 10 with big schools, they just don't miss. Malik Nabors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Roma Duse, I'm confident all three, they're going to be studs.
So that production model that I was telling you about earlier, Malik Nabors is the number 1 receiver in that model, and by a lot. He's in a tier by himself, completely blew away the competition. And he was very similar in the first 3 metrics to Marvin Harrison Jr. He was 2nd in first downs per route run. He was 4th in yards per route run versus man. He was 2nd in yards per route run versus zone. But where Marvin dropped off in yak and missed tackles forced, Malik stayed elite. He was 3rd in yards after the catch per reception and 1st in missed tackles forced per reception. So he absolutely, in the all-around, was, and we're talking about the 100-yard dash versus the decathlon, whereas Marvin Harrison Jr. might win the 100-yard dash gold medal 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10. Malik Nabors has taken home the decathlon. And I love the Malik Nabors pick.
Sweet. Okay, so I'm going to do my fade, and then I think we're going to need to wrap it up, Biggs, because we got a couple things on the go here, and we want to appreciate your time there, Hutch. I know you've been very cordial with that, and we really, really appreciate you coming on.
Great, thank you.
But I wanted to talk about DJ Moore and Kenneth Walker III.
You will at a later date, but my don't draft in this round, and it's going to come to a surprise to many because he had a monster year last year, and that's De'von Achane at ADP 35. It's just too much for me to invest in a running back of his size with so much variable in him. They just signed Raheem Mostert to a 2-year deal, bringing him back, and I know that's not a huge signing, but that just solidifies the role that Achane's going to play. And he had 5 games last year where he just dominated. And I think it's just going to be that as well next year. He's going to have some big games, but I don't know if he's going to be able to stay on the field as long as he has, just because of his size and the wear and tear at that running back position. And I'd rather take a guy like Kyren Williams over him because of the opportunity he has. And he's a bit bigger, and Barkley at this stage, I'd rather take because of the situation that he's in. And Achane is just a guy that I'm fading at this stage just because of his size, and I'm just not sold on him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, honestly. Achane is a guy I'm selling, or Achane is a guy I'm selling as well in Dynasty. I don't really love his opportunity, his cost right now as the RB8 off the board. And I will counter you a little bit because bringing back Raheem Mostert, but that's the guy he was next to when he was producing elite numbers. But the problem is he was producing these elite numbers while averaging nearly 8 yards a carry. And people are expecting that to continue, and it's just not. You're not going to have a running back that averages 8 yards a carry every single season on a consistent basis. It doesn't matter how many carries to get. It just doesn't matter. He's not going to continue that levels of efficiency. He had a great rookie season. He had a lot of explosive runs, but he just is not going to continue that. So unless he has expanded workload which with Raheem Mostert back and potentially adding running backs in the draft, I don't see that happening. He's just not going to maintain the elite fantasy production. Also, people want to talk about those first few games, how he's so elite. When he came back from injury, he fell back down to earth pretty hard. He was still good for fantasy, but that dude fell back to earth pretty damn hard. And he was effective, he was good, but he wasn't the same guy. And he looked healthy. He really did. He wasn't injury plagued. He looked healthy on the field. He just wasn't as effective as he was in the first half because you fall back down to earth after those games of 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 yards per carry, whatever the heck he was averaging in those first two games. So looking at De'von Achane as the RB off the board, I couldn't agree more that he is quite a reach at that cost.
And there are some things where when you have a prospect coming out, there are some things that remain static, whether you're talking about the talents or you're talking about the red flags. And all of the talent with De'von Achane was there, and it was apparent, and people knew about it. But all of the reasons, all of the drawbacks that caused him to fall, and all the people that were taking him in the third and fourth rounds of their rookie drafts that were like, see, I got De'von Achane, I'm a sharp. Those things haven't changed. He's still small. He's still going to be injury prone in this environment that we're in now in the NFL with guys who are 315 pounds that run 4.8, 4.9 40s and hit like a brick wall with legs. Those things are not going to change. I like De'von Achane on a matchup basis. I like him in redraft. I like him with some buffer. I like being able to have him but have a handcuff in place or something, some kind of like support structure underneath him. But I'm not willing to pay for his points per game for 8 or 9 games in a season. If he gave me any indication, which he didn't coming out as a prospect, and he certainly didn't as a rookie, that he was going to be able to sustain his production for a 17-game season, I would throw everything in the world at him. Right? He would be right up there with Bijan and Brees this year. But he has not done anything to quell the fears that I had initially with him coming out as a prospect, and remains too expensive to take that risk. Let him get hurt, grab him in a trade to get you ready for the playoffs, something like that. But as far as drafts are concerned, he's too expensive at his value.
Yeah. Well, Hutch, man, we're gonna wrap this show up because it's been an hour, and we appreciate your time. Like, you've been such a great guest. You know, age shouldn't matter anything, but you've got it, buddy. Honestly, for a guy your age, man, seriously, you know your stuff, and I appreciate you having you on your show. Like, Biggs and I are honored to have you here, buddy. It's been a
Granberg doesn't like shows over an hour because he has to pee frequently.
Exactly. But I want to shout out to Trav for really helping us out here. Look at our new dressings. The Pulse has got a new overlay, a new intro video, and we're going to shout out Trav from the Undroppables.
A rebranding.
He rebranded us, and it looks so fresh. And thanks, Dukes, as well, because you were a big part of this as well. Thanks, guys, for making this happen.
I reached out to Travis and Dukes because they are great at their craft. They are phenomenal graphics guys, and they help us out so much at the Undroppables. And I reached out to Travis and I said, hey, we're looking to rebrand our logoing and everything for the Dynasty Pulse. Would you be interested in doing it? And he said, absolutely. I can help build my portfolio. Everybody go find Travis Seal on Twitter and throw him some more. Say, hey, I got this budget. I want you to do some graphics for me. And with that, I want to shout out Chalk at the Undroppables, Dukes at the Undroppables, T Seal at the Undroppables. You guys are awesome and incredible resources. And also Bradley Stalder, Fantasy Football Plus, and at Player Profiler, our boss, if you will. I also have Greinberg on there because I was supposed to do these shout outs on the earlier episode with Noah Hills, but I forgot to bring my notes up. I forgot that I had made them. So shout out to all those guys, Fantasy Football Plus, Player Profiler, Undroppables. We heart you guys all of the much, and we couldn't be doing this without you guys. So thank you very much. And go ahead and subscribe when you hear us shouting you out.
Hey, Hutch, thanks so much for coming on. Can you tell everybody where to find all your stuff? Because I know you're incredible. You do a lot of work for different platforms, and tell us where we can find everything because we want to hear it all.
Yeah, you too. I just want to thank you all for having me on the show. First off, it was absolutely fantastic discussing these guys with you, and it was really an honor to be on your show. You reached out to me a while ago. It was truly an honor. You guys are really really awesome, and I'd watched a couple of your shows before, and you guys are great. And I'm super super stoked I was able to get on here. But y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at
No lies detected.
I'm at HutchinsonB_FF, and you can find me there on Twitter. You can follow me there, and pretty much all my content you can find from there. I do Hooked on Fantasy with Luke Sawhook. Me and him co-host the podcast together, and I do work with football guys. I'm a big content creator over there. I'm also a big content creator for DLF. I do some stuff for them, especially the podcast editing game for them, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the things I do. I'm a 17-year-old fantasy football analyst just trying to make his way in the fantasy football industry. I'm really, really going for it. Graduating this year, graduating high school, and I've been looking for full-time opportunities in the industry. So any love or support there to help me out would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But yeah, I'm just a 17-year-old trying to make his way here.
Hutch and Luke are two of the sharpest young minds in the game right now, and when you are a teenager or a young buck and you're an inspiration to old guys like me that help me understand what I wanted to do, that's very very valuable, and I'm sure that you'll find good work as soon as you need to, because there's enough people out there that need what you have to offer, and yeah, you're going to go far.
I want to add to that too, because if you could just shout out Luke to me too, because I appreciate him a lot, and he went through the ringer there for a bit, and he does good stuff. Let him know I still appreciate him, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to Luke Sawhook, because he knows his shit. So
Luke Sawhook is legit, man. Yeah, he's legit.
All right, folks. That's it for the Pulse today, and our special guest Hutch. So remember, follow us on our platforms there, and thanks for joining in. And let's hope you all win.